Hello and a warm welcome to another instalment of the Matchbook Racing Review with me, Tom Stanley, and Don McLean, who is the other side of the screen, who no doubt enjoyed a brilliant performance. Another one, yet another different track from the mighty mare that is Enable. First of all, Don, I always forget to ask, how are you? Are you all good?
I'm good, Tom. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. How are you? Refreshed after a short break?
I'm very refreshed. I always find it when you're abroad. I've been away briefly, and it's good because you get refreshed. But if you're not watching the racing live, it is harder to stay abreast of it because you've got to go looking for it, and something always slips through the net. But I think it's important, genuinely, at times as well, just to take the foot off the gas. He says, having been on holiday, it's important to take a holiday. But this racing world, it's non-stop, so I think it's quite good to every now and again get away.
Yeah, it doesn't stop anymore, does it? There's no stop. There's no rest. I mean, friends of mine who are not really interested, they go, when's your quiet time? And I'm going, nah, hard to find one. But no, I agree with you. You need to take a break from it for a little while every now and again and come back all refreshed. But it is hard when to the stuff that you've missed. And I find that it's like missing a class on some aspect of maths in school. You come back and you go, it's always a struggle then to get back up to speed with that piece of math. So that the time you've been away, you do need to catch back up.
Yeah, you're like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Then you go back and watch it, then you work out how it happened. But it didn't need any sort of explanation to see how and why Enable won the Coral Eclipse. And of course, I have watched it back, and I suppose the quotes afterwards were inevitable from John Gosden, because we got them after she won the Arc, that she wasn't 100%, and nor would we expect her to be. She was, 90%, I think he said 85, 90%. And well, was she justified in doing what she did to that field in the Eclipse? Because goodness me, she looked mighty impressive yet again. I don't like putting words like unbeatable out there, Dom, but it's very difficult to see anything touching her, isn't it, over those middle distances? Anything that we know and have seen in this country or in Ireland?
Yeah, no, I thought she was vulnerable going into Saturday. I was against her. From a betting perspective, she was short. Well, she was short, and then she got shorter. Like, the strength behind her in the market just before the off was quite ominous, really. But no, on her season of debut, over 10 furlongs trip. We know how good she is over a mile and a half. She hadn't run over 10 furlongs since she got beaten at Newbury 100 years ago. And given that, even she didn't have really solid engagements in the Coronation Cup or the Prince of Wales Stakes, but they were definite options. They were races that were on her radar, and she missed them both. And you're kind of thinking, well, if she wasn't ready for the Prince of Wales Stakes, this is 2.5 weeks later. The Arc, a third Arc is her ultimate goal, so it's going to be a stepping stone into the season. So all of that, maybe I was convincing myself in looking for an angle into the race, but it didn't matter. She was brilliant, and she was rock solid before Saturday's race. Going into the race, she had won 2 Arcs, one as a 3-year-old getting the weight, one as a 4-year-old giving away the weight, even though she's a filly. She'd won her Breeders' Cup. She had done an awful lot. Like, if she'd retired at the end of a 4-year-old season, you'd have said, job done. Really, that's how good she is. She really didn't have much left to do or to prove. But to come out again now and go for it, it's brilliant that she's back in training. Brilliant that she's going for a third Arc. Great for racing that she won as she did. And okay, she only won by 3 parts of a length, but she had more in hand than that. You would have thought she looked like the most likely winner from a long way out. It never, like, Magical came under pressure before her, and she just quickened away. And again, the fact that she was ridden by Frankie Dettori, it just gave it that extra bit of spice to lift it even further off the page.
Yeah, another Group 1 for him. We talk about his Magnificent Seven. I think that's his 7th Group 1 in about 6 weeks. He's riding, I think, the best he's ever ridden. I'm happy to say that now. And there was talk of it towards the end of last year about whether he's the best big race rider out there, but just whether he is the best rider out there. There's certainly that weight behind him with regards to belief from the public and from himself at the moment, I think. And his relationship with John Gosden over the last few years has just gone from strength to strength. It is great to see, given where he thought he was 4 years ago. But just on Enable, if I had to pick a horse, or I'll go for two horses who I not hope could beat her, but because I don't hope anything beats her. But equally, we like challengers. They both have something to do with Japan. One of them is called Japan. It's a stretch, I know, but with that 3-year-old allowance, I think he might just emerge the best of the colts based upon what we saw at Royal Ascot, based upon where he was coming into the Derby and where he had been going into the Dante prior to that. That still doesn't mean necessarily that he's going to go and beat a filly like Enable. That is a real stretch. And there's double figures knocking around him for an arc at the moment, which is the most likely point at which they could meet. But I think we're far from seeing the best of him. And I also think the filly, Almond Eye, the Japanese filly, given what she did in Dubai, I'd hope that they got to meet. Now, it doesn't look like it's not going to happen this season. We again hoped it was going to happen in the Juddmonte International, then in the Arc. And I know she was beaten subsequently in her first start in June out back at home. But I think she has the ability, were they to ever meet, to cause Enable something of a scare. But these are all imponderables as to whether they're ever going to meet. So it's hoping more than anything that they'll come together and provide us with a match. I don't, for example, hold out as much hope for a Crystal Ocean in a King George, or even an Anthony Van Dyke, for example, of upsetting that mare.
Yeah, I know it is hard to see it, isn't it? If Japan were running in the King George, it looks. I think Aidan said yesterday that he probably wasn't going to go in the King George, which is a pity because, you know, as you say, when he was that impressive at Ascot and winning the King Edward, and to a horse who was he was rushed. It was a rush preparation to get him ready for the Dante. He ran an unbelievable race in the Derby, given that he was so weak in the market and obviously wasn't at the top of the Ballydoyle list. And then his win at Royal Ascot reaffirmed that. So he'd probably come on again from that. So yeah, that would be fascinating. And she'd have to give him weight, obviously, in an arc if the you know, touch wood, if the two of them go and get there. So yeah, and that it's going to be. I think he's going Grand Prix de Saint or Grand Prix de Paris. That seems to be the way that Aidan's thinking. And then obviously with the arc in the back of his mind. So yeah, if the two of them pitch up at Longchamp on Arthur Triumph Day, drawn beside each other, 4 and 5. Yeah, that'd be a good one, wouldn't it?
That would be incredible. It's a way off, but goodness me, that is going to be the place to be if Enable gets there in One Place Arc Day, looking for an unprecedented and a record-breaking third arc. On that, Sea of Class, we know is fighting for her life. I personally haven't seen an update since this morning. We're doing this Monday evening, but last I'd read was that she was still fighting to. She was in intensive care, having been in there, I think, since Wednesday when she suffered a bout of colic. Now, she nearly won an arc last year, and we know she was beaten on her reappearance in the Prince of Wales. There seemed obvious excuses for that. And we've been denied, ultimately, before we get on to her health, what could have been the ultimate clash, I think, between these two in the King George, between Sea of Class and Enable. It shows just that perilous line there is between superstardom and never racing again.
Yeah, and that's why when a racehorse like Enable comes along, you have to appreciate her because they're so fragile. We know this, and yeah, God, you have to feel for William Haggis and Mrs. Choi for like Sea of Class. She'd achieved so much, but yet you still felt that there was much more to come, and that to get so close to beating Enable in an arc, albeit getting the 3-year-old's allowance, she was drawn very badly that day. As we know, she ran a hell of a race to get as close as she did. And you would you would have loved to have seen a rematch between her and Enable because she still had, she's still a relatively lightly raced filly. She still had lots more left to give, you would have thought. And yeah, like a runner Royal Ascot, I'd forgive her that, as we discussed at the time, because of the ground. Even William Haggis said afterwards he probably shouldn't have run her because the ground just wasn't against it, but he had to get her out and get her going. And it was a good starting point for her. And James Doyle just wasn't hard on her once her winning chance had gone. So you're really looking forward to seeing her running next. So alas, we're not going to see her race, but hopefully she'd be some broodmare as well. If hopefully everything is okay and she comes out of intensive care all right.
Yeah, fingers crossed they can just transition her onto that next stage of her career, because it'd be fantastic to see what her offspring do. We hope she pulls through that. Just on Enable, it's a ridiculous question, so I won't ask it how it has been asked, but comparing her to horses like Frankel and See the Stars, I think she's earned the right to be compared in amongst them. However, do you think, Don, you can only really start a direct comparison once these horses have finished their careers, once we have all the information with regards to their career behind them, because otherwise you can't do that direct comparison because there's still unknown quantities left to come? Or has she not even earned the right to be mentioned in the same breath as the likes of Frankel, the likes of See the Stars, those recent superstars?
Yeah, no, I think she's definitely earned the right to be in there among them. But I think both your points are well made. Like you can't compare. You're not comparing like with like, because you're comparing a racehorse who's still racing with horses who have finished their careers, and we know how good they were and what they achieved. And we've had the passage of time since then as well. There's no recency bias, but yeah. A, it's hard to compare horses from different eras, and B, I just think that she's in that group, and I think that's enough. To argue Frankel was better, or See the Stars was better, or Enable was better. I think that it's kind of a moot point, really. I think she's in that bracket. She's achieved all this. If she could go win 3 arcs, that would be an achievement that has never been done before. So that would be brilliant. But to say, you could argue one either way. I don't think you can definitively say that she's better than those, or vice versa. I think you can just say she's earned her place among them.
We know that Donn thinks See the Stars is better. He loves See the Stars.
You got a drink of water.
You have a drink of water. I jest. I know that. Look, I absolutely take that. But it's great that we're mentioning her while she's still racing in the same breath of those types of horses. Now, Frankie Dettori's weekend was, I think it's fair to say, he probably achieved more than most of us this weekend. Bearing in mind, I ate my own body weight in croissant, was sat on an inflatable flamingo for much of it. And I don't know what you were doing, Donn, but I assume you were working hard. But Frankie Dettori was riding Group 1s between here and France. He rode the winner of the Prix Jean Prat as well as Enable in the form of Too Darn Hot. Which of those two, to your mind, was the best equine performance, Too Darn Hot or Enable?
I think Enable's performance was, it was an eclipse. It was her coming back and building on, or coming back as good as ever. I think Too Darn Hot, it was great to see him back. Great to see him winning it as he did, because, as we've discussed here before, he just, for the juvenile that he just hadn't shown, obviously, as a 3-year-old yet. Now there was mitigation, but at the same time, you still wanted him to go and put up a performance like the one that he put up, and dropped back down to 7 furlongs. He showed that turn of foot, and when you see how good he was over 7 there on Sunday, thinking about him as a potential Derby horse like that, it's kind of, you look back and you go, well, now we know why he got beaten in a Dante and why he wasn't going to be a Derby horse. He's got so much pace, so it's great to see him back.
Those are the difficulties, I think, when you have, not the difficulties. It's great for him to have a pedigree like he had, but because of his stature, or in a way lack thereof physically, in comparison to that pedigree of his mother and siblings, sisters who were so good over middle distances, and the stallion importance, the prowess, everything that comes with winning over those middle distances, they had to try. There's no way they could have come into this season and gone, do you know what? We're gonna go for a Prix Jean Prat and a Foray. They had to come into this season and go, we've got to try the Dante. We'll go Guineas. They were always going to go Guineas, Dante, and if he stayed, Derby. They had to. But as it found out, as it came to bear, he had a setback. He was rushed into a Dante slightly. Then suddenly back to the Irish Derby. And it was all just his season was unravelling in front of him. I think it shows something about the horse and the skill of a trainer as well, who's held his hands up and said perhaps he didn't get it quite right early doors, that they could get this horse back to his best, I think, with regard to what he did. But I think the key to that was the trip, but not necessarily the fact that he doesn't stay further. He does stay further. I'd argue he stayed 10 furlongs, but it's what he's best at. And because of the way he goes about it, he stays a mile, no doubt about that. But he's better, I think, or was better over shorter because of what he does or doesn't do early on in his races over shorter, because he settles that bit better in a bigger field where they're going quicker. I'd love to see him in a Sussex Stakes. That could be ideal for him. But whether they'll go quick enough for him to use himself effectively in the early part of the race to have enough left at the end is the question mark. So if they can harness that early keenness, that early will to race, then I think there's every chance he'll win a Group 1 over a mile. But as is, his 2 wins in that sphere have come over 7 furlongs so far, but because he needs that pace almost to settle into his race and to use himself to the best of his ability late on.
Yeah, no, like I was thinking when he got beaten in the Dante and then got beaten in the Irish Guineas, I was just thinking, look, he was a brilliant 2-year-old and he's a very good 3-year-old. It's just that his peers have caught up with him. And, as you say, John Gosling said afterwards, the Irish Guineas, probably wasn't a good idea in hindsight. As we kind of thought at the time, having a rush preparation for the Dante and then an Irish, I think it was 10 days later, 11 days later, or maybe 9 days later to go for an Irish Guineas. It wasn't an orthodox route, let's say. But no, to get him back, and yeah, I was delighted to see it because he was so good last year, and you want to see these talented horses continuing to progress, and you want to see these performances. And if he'd finished second behind Space Blues on Sunday, you would have gone, yeah, I was, that's the way they've just caught up with him. But to go and beat them, and it's probably a combination of, given that he was rushed at the start of the season, maybe he just wasn't fully 100% at any stage, and maybe John Gosling didn't have the time to get him to that point. And now with 3 races under his belt, goes to France, and I think the drop down to 7 furlongs was a fact. I take your point that I'm sure he can win a Group 1 race over a mile, and the Sussex Stakes, it looks like could be an ideal race for him at Goodwood over a round mile, which it's an easy mile. I think John Gosling mentioned the Prix Jacques Lemarrois as well as a potential target. So I nearly prefer the Sussex Stakes though, because I think Goodwood might suit him better. It might suit his pace better. But it might be the Prix de la Forêt is the race for him at the end of the season. So that, given that he was that good over 7 furlongs, all his good runs last year were over 7 furlongs as well. Interesting. I mean, you think gets 7 as a juvenile with his pedigree, that he'd be better over further as a 3-year-old. But it may be that 7 furlongs is his optimum trip now.
Yeah, it's just those options, 7 furlongs wise, aren't we don't have a Group 1 in this country over 7 furlongs. I'm not sure we're about to get one immediately either. So that tends to force a hand one way or the other. I wonder where they'll end up as well. I wonder if a Breeders' Cup Mile will be considered, for example. I think that he was talked of with the July Cup in mind possibly as well, even though he's not going to bring him back a week later to do that. But they did that with Oasis Dream, didn't they? They went out to the Breeders' Cup and ran over that mile there. So I wonder, this is of course John Gosden, I wonder if that's at the back of their mind. It's all possibilities. I don't think they'll be trying to. You and I talked about him as a champion stakes horse. I don't think they'll be trying 10 again at the end of the season, Don. I think that's out the window now. We can let that one go.
Yeah, no, I think Breeders' Cup Mile is a good shout. A flat turning mile where pace is so important. For a horse who's showed that pace over 7 furlongs. That could be Prix de la Forêt Breeders' Cup Mile. That could be a good end of season plan for him.
Yeah, and just jump on the plane with a navel to go to France and perhaps back to the US. We'll see. Right, we mentioned the July Cup, so let's just talk about that because that's coming up. We might just pick out a few horses we're looking forward to seeing at Newmarket. But first of all, July Cup, you've got the likes of Kate Byron in there, who won the Wokingham. He'd have to be very exciting. We know that Frankie Dettori, he could just ride another Group 1 winner. Why not? His 8th in 6 weeks on the form of advertised. We won at Ascot. And that seems a good pairing. Martin Mead saying today how happy he is about that he's going to be free to ride that horse. And then you've got Dream of Dreams, who nearly beats the dual scorer Blue Point at Ascot, plus a couple of other Aidan O'Brien horses in there just hotting it up. Is there anything that leaps out at you this stage, Don?
Yeah, look, 10 Sovereigns, if he takes his chance, he's interesting. Give him another chance over 6. It's just, like he's got 2 or 3 lengths to find by the advertise and the running in the Commonwealth Cup, but hopefully he'll go because I think he deserves another chance. Lemato might be a bit of an underrated horse. I know he's 7 years old now, but he was top class. And his run the last day was very good. Again, he only got home by a neck, but he had the race won from a long way out. He just he looked the most likely winner, and I know that was only it was only a Group 3, but we know that he's a Group 1 horse, and he goes so well on the July course. He had one disappointing run there in the July Cup, but he's won a July Cup. He's only just beaten by Harry Angel in the July Cup, and his other good runs at Newmarket on the July course. I think he's run there 5 times. He's won 3 times and finished second one, something like that. So, I'm going 6 furlongs is probably his trip, even though last time was 7. Yeah, I mean, he's got a little bit to find on ratings, but yeah, I still think that he might be a bit of an underrated horse going into the race. He's kind of lost his sheen, hasn't he? He was a very fashionable horse. He's just not that fashionable anymore.
I mean, if you look at his performance was simply stunning a few years ago. It was back in 2016, but it was phenomenal. But yes, I suppose, look, he's not rated as high back then as he was. And he's yet to put in a performance like that again. He was very impressive last time. We know he likes the course. He's a similar sort of price to one I wanted to mention, who's Fairyland. I don't know if you know, with your Irish ear to the ground, Donn, but is of the three main ones in there for Aiden, 10 Sovereign, So Perfect, Fairyland, are they all likely to go?
I don't know. That's how close my ear is to the ground, Tom.
Well,
I don't know.
I'd imagine that they will. You know, they've got that. When did Fairyland last run at Ascot, didn't she? So I'd imagine she might well. If she went, I'd be interested in her. I don't think 5 is her thing. I think she's a 6 furlong filly, and I think she ran well enough last time in the King's Stand, and she kept on well enough. I thought. I think 6 will suit her.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think again, similar to Iron Hot, but different. Like they had to try her in the Guineas and have a go and see if she could stretch out to a mile. And the worry about her going into the Guineas was always that she might not fully get a mile, and back over 5 at Ascot, maybe that was too sharp. So I mean, 6 could be her triple. She's a Cheveley Park winner. So yeah, no, that she'd be interesting if she takes it. So Perfect, also interesting. And Joseph's horse, Speaking Colours, it's a bit of a quick turnaround for him. He's just got a 2-week break after winning the listed race on Irish Derby Day. So and that was quite quickly after Ascot. So he might just have a little bit of a break now. But at the same time, he's a classy horse as well.
Just to talk, the last time she ran over 6 was the Cheveley Park, which she won. She's run twice since over a mile and run once over 5. So I think we can give her another chance going back over 6. Just, you mentioned Joseph O'Brien. I had no idea that this was the case, but Racing Post did an article on Irish racing sort of midway through the season. The second quarter of this year, Joseph O'Brien has had 460 odd runners in the second quarter of the year. It's 200 more than his father. It caught me by surprise. I mean, what is he, 26?
25, I think.
I mean, but it's just unreal, isn't it?
No, it's unbelievable, Tom. Like the operation that he runs and the way that he runs it and the efficiency with which he runs it, it's unbelievable. He's got some team of people, some team of horses, and some team of owners as well. And he knows them all intimately. You know, he knows his horses inside out. He knows what they're doing, knows what their plans are, and no, he's an unbelievable operator
across both coasts as well. It really caught me by surprise. I mean, the Colin Keens and the Shane Foleys on the jockey side, they've done brilliantly, but it wasn't something untoward with regards to what I expected or out of kilter with what I expected. But him having that many runners, it's just absolutely phenomenal. I can't even manage a diary. What about?
Can't manage 4 children.
Exactly. What about other horses we're looking forward to running? Visionary has to be one of them. Now, this is one of the horses that skipped Royal Ascot for Mark Johnston. Speaking to Charlie Johnston the other day, he said that it was one of 2 races, and he's since made it public as well that he'd probably prefer to stick to the course and distance of the July Stakes, and the boss might be leaning towards going Superlative. Now, I know that's the boss saying that. I'm going to put it on the line and say I think he's going to go July Stakes. I just think they will stay over that course and distance. It might depend whatever turns up in the other races and what looks the stronger race. But he's bred for further, yes. He won in a very good time and showed a lot of speed to win over the course and distance of the July Stakes. So I think that's where we might see him. But he'll scare a few off the back of that performance.
Yeah, no, that was everything, as we discussed at the time, everything about that performance, and I know you were raving about him then, and on his race course debut, to do what he did, and he was relatively unfancied as well, and he came clear of the second, who was in turn clear of the third, and the time, as you pointed, was so good on his race course debut, horse of Mark Johnston. So much to look forward to with him. Yeah, it was quicker than the handicap one on that day.
It was a very, very good time performance, and on debut, ease down has to be taken notice of. Just one other horse that might run at Newmarket I wanted to pick out is a horse I talked about on the pod with Rory Delaghi last week. It's a horse called Infrastructure. He's got a couple of entries at a couple of different. In fact, he's got the entries at Chester and York this weekend. One of them's on the Friday, so I might not get the chance to talk about it on the pod. He is, I think, a horse that is going to go very close on his next start. He didn't get into his Old Newton Cup intended run, so that didn't happen. He was the first reserve. It didn't happen. But I think he's a horse worth following. He's got form around Chester as well, but perhaps 10.5 furlongs of York could suit that a little bit better. And another horse I wanted to touch upon is a horse I've talked about on here with you before, and that is Solid Stone, who has an entry at Newmarket. He was very disappointing in the London Gold Cup at Newbury. I think he's better than that. He won at the Rowley Mile course on his first start of the season. He's a horse I had earmarked as a possible group company horse, so I've got to forgive him last time and give him one more chance, Solid Stone. And based upon that run last time, wherever he shows up, I think he'll be a healthy enough price as well. I still think he's got a bright future ahead of him. So Solid Stone and Infrastructure, as far as a couple of handicappers if they turn up this weekend.
Yeah, but that London Gold Cup, I mean, it's always a very good race. It wasn't working out that well as you expect this year until Headman went and did what he did at St. Cloud. So that was good. That, I think that race it's a very exciting race. You can watch it again and again and go all the way down to well down the placings for horses to note from it or for horses to come out of it. So it was good that Headman went and did what it did. As you say, it just wasn't his running. Solid Stone was disappointing that day. So horse that just fully deserving of another chance. On Saturday, Falcon 8 of Dermot Wells, just a horse that he doesn't have obviously any. I don't think he's entered in anything at the moment, but he was very good. The slow pace wouldn't have suited him. He battled on really well. Another Frankie the Tory winner, surprise, to beat Mekong, which it was a very good performance. He's a 3 parts brother to Free Eagle, and he stays 2 miles well. So it's he's only 4. He's 4, but he's very lightly raced. And even his running the Savile Bay behind Twilight Payment, that form has worked out well. So I mean, we know how good Twilight Payment is, but it was enhanced further when he went and won the Curragh Cup last time. So there's lots to like about Falcon 8, and he'll be of interest, just worth noting wherever he goes next. That's it.
He's got, given the trainer, could he be a Champions Day type horse? One for the race that Stradivarius won last year. I'm thinking on the spot here, but
absolutely, the long distance cup. I think it's still a Group 2, isn't it? There are mutterings around making it a Group 1, but a Group 2, and Dermot Wells, it's got a really good record on that day. Didn't Free Eagle think he won? Didn't he win the Champion Stakes on that day? Beat Grey Gatsby in a I think it was the Champion Stakes he won, wasn't it?
Did, yes. I've got the Grey Gatsby performance. Was that not at Royal Ascot itself? That was the.
Sorry.
Pat on Luck on Sunday, I spoke to Pat Smullen about that race. He said that was the best ride he'd ever given a horse. Beat the Grey Gatsby, and I thought, I'd back the Grey Gatsby, so I was cross with him at the time.
No, I remember it. It was They weren't going a great pace, and from memory, I think Pat was a little bit behind initially on Free Eagle, but he noticed they weren't going to a good pace. He moved his horse up, and he sat on the outside of the leader. It might have been a French horse was leading anyway, and he sat up on the outside, and he waited and waited and waited and waited, kept the Grey Gatsby locked in, and then when he figured there wasn't time for the Grey Gatsby to catch him, he kicked, and Free Eagle went, and the Grey Gatsby clawed him back the whole way to the line. So I didn't hear him saying that now, but I'm not surprised that he said it was definitely up there with his best rides, and that's one of those had plenty of good rides.
He's had a few, I think it's fair to say. One last thing just to finish on. We're pretty much over halfway through the season. I was just looking then as you were talking about that, when Hermosa made her debut, because I got a feeling it's around about the time this year. But the point being, we're already talking about these excellent 2-year-olds we've seen and looking forward to next season and what trips they're going to stay. It's not often we've seen a classic winner yet. Now, Magna Grecia made his debut towards the back end of the season. Hermosa had just about made hers. Are you at this stage thinking, I'll take it easy with regards to the 2-year-olds we've seen that are going to progress on into 3-year-olds, just because we have recency bias at the moment telling us we've seen something special, but maybe most of the champions of years to come are still in their box? Or have you seen anything where you've gone, yes, love that, that's a superstar in the making?
I take your point with recency bias, but I'd be surprised if we haven't seen a classic winner so far this season. I think the 2-year-olds we've seen so far, there have been some exceptional 2-year-olds in there. Siskin, we've spoken about him before. Ger Lyons' horse, the Khaled Abdullah horse, he's won his 3. He was very, very good the last day. I think even the horse that he beat into second, Monarch of Egypt, he'll probably progress from that. He might get closer to Siskin next time if they meet again anytime soon. He's a very exciting juvenile. Pinatubo, Chesham winner over 7. Broke the juvenile course record. Even some of Jessica Harrington's fillies, Albania, she'll be better, stepped up to 7 furlongs. The Moiler is her race for sure. That's it looks like the obvious race for her. And Wind Racer, who she only won a maiden, but was a really good maiden. She won another Jessica Harrington filly. She could go debutante stakes and then maybe on to the Moiler. And Jessica Harrington has a few other juveniles, she says in there, who we haven't seen yet. So maybe they'll be the ones that will come out, and they'll be the ones we'll be raving about later in the season. But I think so far we've seen some very talented juveniles. What do you think?
I have this issue, or almost a problem, I think, Don, where I like I like those ones that have been beaten and the ones that I think can come out and prove the best of them. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because I'm always searching for value that that they won't be taken into account next time. But the 2 I'm really excited by are Monarch of Egypt and Threat, and they were both beaten last time. So I still think Threat's a really, really good horse who can fill out his frame and progress into a Guineas horse next year. But there's every chance I'll be looking back in April going, what a stupid thing to think that was. But I still think he's a real horse in there. I'm hopeful. I'm an optimist, Don. So there you are. But yeah, those 2 would be the ones I'm really excited about towards the latter end of the season. Definitely getting their Group 1s. Maybe they'll meet. I don't know. They could both be over in a Dewhurst together. But those would be 2 I'd be very excited about. Happy?
Happy. Yeah.
Good man. Don, thanks very much. We'll chat again, similar sort of time next week. And we will be obviously reflecting on some more brilliant, it's just non-stop, isn't it? We're reflecting on what I'm sure has been a brilliant July meeting at Newmarket, as well as many other things. Don, thank you very much. Thanks to those of you at home for watching, and we will see you again next week. Bye for now.